guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time that you get to listen to this. Thank you so much for tuning in today and for staying with me in this Bible summary. Yani, let me tell you, if you haven't missed like at least the last 4 podcasts, you've done well. Clap for yourself. You deserve a medal. You deserve a hooray. So, hooray! Also remember, if this podcast is good for you, it could be good for someone else, so share it with those that are closest to you. Today we'll be covering Numbers chapter 32. This is where some 2 tribes want to be party poopers, and they want to be those people who back off from a plan when it is time to implement it. So let's see what they do. Let's get into it. I'll be reading word for word from the Message version, but I'll also be summarizing some parts just so that we can have enough time to hear the word of God and to just hear what it is that it's telling us. All right, so this is what it says. The families of Reuben and Gad had huge herds of livestock. They saw, what did they do? They saw that the country of Jazer and the country of Gilead was just the place for grazing livestock. And so they came, the families of Gad and the family of Reuben, and spoke to Moses and Eleazar, the priest and the leaders of the congregation, saying, a Torah, let me tell you, they read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They basically named 10 places in that country that were good for livestock and for grazing. That words are really difficult. I should say hard word. And then they said, so they came to Moses and Elijah and the leaders of the congregation, and they said, these are the places that we would like to settle down. Like, these places are really good for livestock, and we have livestock as well. So they named the countries, and there were 10 of them, and they said the country that God laid down before the community of Israel is a country just right for livestock, and we have livestock. So they're basically making their case before Akina Moses and the leaders and the priests. Then they continued, if you think we've done a good job so far, give us this country for our inheritance. Don't make us go across the Jordan. So basically, the Israelites were on the east side of the Jordan, as in they had not crossed the Jordan. But once they crossed the Jordan, that is the promised land. But these guys, the tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuben, say they want to not cross the Jordan, but rather they want to actually inherit the lands. That is not what God had promised, but outside of what the Lord had promised. So let's see what Moses said. So Moses answered the families of Gad and the families of Reuben and says, do you mean that you are going to leave the fighting that's ahead to your brothers while you settle down here? Why would you even think of letting the people of Israel down, demoralizing them, just as they are about to move into the land God gave them? This is exactly what your ancestors did when I sent them from Kadesh to survey the country. They went as far as the valley of Eshcol, took one look, and quit. So basically, Moses is telling them, why would you do the same things that the 10 spies did? Why are you demoralizing the Israelites? And you want to tell me that the rest of the 10 tribes will go into the promised land, that will fight for this land, and you guys are just going to be settled over here doing nothing? Like, really? Like, why would you do that? And then he continued to tell them that the 10 spies did the same thing, that they completely demoralized the people of Israel from entering the land of God that God had given them. And in return, God got angry and killed each and every one of them that was 20 years and above, apart from Caleb and apart from Joshua. And Moses continued to just kind of give them like a story of what had happened, just in case they had forgotten. And then he told them, and now, here you are. Just one more mob of sinners stepping up to replace your ancestors, throwing fuel on an already blazing anger of God against Israel. If you won't follow him, he'll do it again. He will dump them in the desert, and the disaster will be all your fault. Then they came close to Moses and said, all we want to do is to build corrals for our livestock and towns for our families. Then we will take up the arms and take the front lines, leading the people of Israel and to their place. We'll be able to leave our families behind, secure in fortified towns, safe from those who live in the land. But we won't go back home until every Israelite is in full possession of his inheritance. We won't expect any inheritance west of Jordan. We are claiming all our inheritance east of Jordan. So Moses basically, so the two tribes say, you know what, it's okay, we just want to build some place for our livestock, some cities for our families, and some homes for our families. Then we will actually join the rest of the Israelites and we'll be frontline fighting for the promised land. And when every Israelite has gotten a place, an inheritance, we will then come home. And we will not do that until every Israelite have gotten the land home. So that's the promise that they make. And God goes ahead and says, if they will do that, that's fine. And Moses goes ahead to tell the priest that now, please note that the families of Gad and Reuben will inherit the land that is on the opposite side of, rather the east side of Jordan. And so it says, we will do as our master commands. Our children and wives and our livestock and herd will stay behind here in the town of Gilead. But we, every one of us, fully armed, will cross the river and fight for God, just as our master said. So the families of Gad and Reuben responded and said, we will do what God has said. We will cross the Jordan before God, ready and willing to fight. But the land we inherit will be here, to the east of Jordan. So Moses gave the families of Gad and Reuben and the half tribe of Manasseh. So there were actually 2.5 tribes. There was Gad, there was the whole tribe of Gad, whole tribe of Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the kingdom of Shiloh, king of Amorites, and the king of Og, king of Bashan, the lands, its towns, and all the territories connected to them. And then so the guys were given actually that land, and they were told, you know what, this is where you will inherit, because this is what you've wanted to do, this is what you will inherit. But when it comes to the time for us to cross the river Jordan and fight, you guys will join us. Let me tell you, I don't know whether you guys have been part of planning, any event or any holiday for a group of friends or even family. You know the work that goes into mobilizing people and getting them to agree to a plan. So let's assume you're planning a road trip with your friends, and that will lead to a 3-night accommodation or vacation somewhere. Then just when you're about to travel, 1 or 2 people send a message to the whole WhatsApp group, not even just one person or the person leading, to the whole WhatsApp group, that reads something like this: I don't think I'll be able to make it, or I'll find my own means there, or I think I'll only be there for 1 night. As in, how demoralizing is that? As in, what a party pooper. Like, honestly, why would you do that? Demoralizing the whole group just because you don't want to be part of this, or just because you don't want to do the work, or just because you don't want to fully commit. This is exactly what the tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuben did in this chapter. Until Moses had the people counted, a refresher course on the sacrifices had been done, some battles have been won, and now the Israelites are pumped and ready to cross River Jordan into the promised land. And then these 2 tribes decide that they don't want to be part of the inheritance, but they just want to settle. And they want to be given the lands where they are camping. As in, what party poopers? Okay, maybe I need to stop with the party pooping. But honestly, how demoralizing can this be? And I wonder what caused these 2 tribes to be impatient. The Bible records that the families of Reuben and the family of Gad saw that the country of Jazer and Gilead was just a place for grazing livestock. And then they desired the land, and then they acted on it. This is the same thing that happened in the Garden of Eden with Eve. She saw the forbidden fruit, she desired it, and then she ate it. Don't get me wrong, what they saw, these lands were beautiful. I mean, bountiful even. It just wasn't what God had in store for them. Yet God allowed them to have it under some conditions. Are we the patient or the impatient kind? Are we those that cannot wait for what God has promised, but rather we settle for what we have now, what we can see now, what we can touch now? I pray that we can be those who wait to cross over the Jordan. I pray that, that we can be those who wait. I know that we have waited even for more than 40 years. And yes, we have won even some battles. And this place is not even bad after all. It is good for our livestock. God has even allowed us to stay. But I pray that we may be those that can trust God and wait patiently to cross the river Jordan and see just what God has in store for us. This is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore.